had, and he's recording. These recordings do show up on YouTube and other places, Facebook and wherever they get shared. So I think it's fair to let everyone know that that's happening. The other thing, Linda, I appreciate that you got the maintenance guys to peel off that ugly Formica that was kind of chipping away at the front, because when you watch the YouTube videos, it looked like we had a pretty shabby chambers here with all of the the chip and the different colors and everything. So this is looking a lot better. And Tony, just a heads up, you may already have noticed this, but your last video, you had a foot waving in front of the
I believe today.
I don't know whose foot it is, but I think he's sitting next to you on your right. And I didn't see the shoe size, so I couldn't really figure it out. But anyway, everyone did see the so it is 5:30 now, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome all the guests here. This is becoming really fun, having a lot of spectators and really having people from the community participate. I've often said that we want to stop thinking of this as just a town and think of it as a community, and that's what we're becoming. If this keeps happening, we're going to have to knock out that back wall or something here to make room for everyone. But sincerely, I want to wish all of you a welcome to this second and last council meeting of March 2019. It's really good to have you here. I will open the meeting with a call to order and roll call.
Councilor Anderson is absent. Abrahamson?
Here.
Belleville?
Here.
Hinton?
Here.
Cranston?
Here. Thank you very much. Oh, we're going to wait just a second. I have a hunch.
No.
A guess.
No. Okay. Before we go to the agenda, I noticed when I opened up our book here that there's an FYI remedy for grievance number 6810 here. Is this? I know that we have grievance on the agenda. That's the policy. Okay. So this particular remedy for grievance is one that I would like to address, and a couple of things here. The meeting, this remedy for grievance is the outcome from a grievance committee meeting that was held on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. I was unaware of the meeting until I came back from St. Paul from a legislative rally on Friday afternoon. I was actually hoping to meet you here, but apparently didn't work out. I wanted to go over the agenda with you because of the things that I added. So I found out about this grievance meeting when I came on Friday. I stopped by here on Wednesday morning before I left, and I didn't see this posted. So I imagine that you have documented somewhere when this was posted.
It was posted Tuesday night before I left.
Yeah,
It was on
the
book.
deputy clerk posted it.
It was before I left for conference that it was already there, so that was
Okay.
Tuesday.
Several other people mentioned that they had come over here to look at the door to see if this was posted, and they didn't see it on Wednesday, and that's why I specifically bring it up. For meetings like this, I've asked in the past, and I'll formally ask again, that you let the council know when there is going to be such a meeting. I would like to have known this, and I'm not aware that one of the grievance committee members was aware of the meeting. One of the issues and one of the problems that we'll eventually have to fix with the grievance committee is that there are only 3 people, and this gets into an issue that we will have to fix. And I'm looking over at Steve here because Steve is a department head in the city, and you actually are the administrator for the 2 largest employers. And the grievance, actually chairing the grievance committee, can be intimidating for employees that may want to do a grievance. So at just a point for the future, we'll come back to that. We never were able to finish doing the committee and commission rosters because of certain issues with that roster that need to be repaired. So it's something that we'll come back to at a later time. There's other positions on the roster that haven't been filled yet that I expect to fill as soon as we get some other things kind of out of the way here. But the fact that, as I understand it, this remedy for grievance has already been sent to the Teamsters Union.
It has, and
Okay.
the union and their member has required.
Okay, and they've already accepted this?
They have accepted it. I didn't
Oh, you don't have to look it up.
I didn't have a
Okay,
chance
so
to
I'll take
thoroughly
your
read the
word for it.
email, but they sent an email.
When I, okay, I didn't, okay, I haven't looked at the second page, I just, I got the first page when I was here on Friday. I spoke with our city attorney, Andy Peterson, asked him, what the next step here was, because I was unaware that this was going to happen. And Andy said, well, this really is of no consequence because it needs to go to the city council before it gets sent to the Teamsters. Now, I know that we disagree with that, but that's an issue that I believe this has to be tabled and set aside until our city attorney, Andy Peterson, is back from vacation. He's gone for a week, and then we get a ruling on this. And this is my personal comment, and the council can chime in as they wish, but at this point, I see no validity in this at all whatsoever. Any comments? Oh, and Steve, yeah,
My
you're
only
the third
comment
member.
that I don't know why it wasn't emailed.
You were.
The deputy clerk sent out the email stuff, so and posted it.
I did not have any email on my computer,
You
and I
can-
didn't
I'll
get
have
a
Terry
phone.
pull it up and send it to you so you can see that you were copied.
On my,
She said
on
she
my-
copied, we asked her this morning,
okay,
you were all
so I
three
looked
were
on
copied.
my computer when I left the hall.
Now,
Oh,
did she send email to the City of Tower email or to his, the email that he
Yeah, 'cause it
uses?
wasn't on my regular email,
City of Tower, I'm sure
and
she
I'm not on that for various reasons.
I think,
Yeah,
I think
I didn't even
we're well
receive
aware
a phone
that there
call, so I
has
do
been-
have a problem, I'm just gonna say,
Sure.
let me finish.
I'm sorry.
I do have a serious problem with that whole thing. And, because when we left the last meeting, it was, we were gonna have Hope and Peters, or Andy there to answer questions about what we would, if anything, agree to, so.
And he did
He-
decline.
yeah, he
that.
did.
You were
He-
sent that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just, well, like
He
you
did-
said,
He did decline to participate a second time. That question was asked of Andy.
no, but I had some other questions I would have liked to ask.
He declined to participate.
Well, he did, okay, well,
Yes.
then I would have liked that other
She-
council, so. Because
So-
some of these things are really important to me.
So
Yeah,
this,
I just
remedy
feel
for
it
grievance,
very,
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah, I just feel it's very tainted, so I'm gonna leave it at that for now.
Would it be appropriate to add this as an item on the agenda so that we can?
We can do that, yes.
I didn't know this was, I didn't know when they would accept this, so I didn't even know this was, because this wasn't on the agenda. I didn't think this was gonna come up till the first city meeting anyway.
As far as we were advised, it didn't need to be on
So
it.
anyway,
Okay. And then, as Steve said, for obvious reasons, the security of the city email was under question. And so the fact that a counselor is reluctant to use that email, I believe is, and that's something that I'm going to address, but I think it's a valid
yeah,
concern.
I know, but, yeah, I have my concern about that, so.
So, add remedy, and I'll come back to that next. I'm going to, as mayor, take a point of of personal privilege and read the document that I was not able to read last time.
I don't know that you wanna do that if you're considering looking at an investigator, and I thought that for some sort of outside party. Until that party is identified, I think you should address them.
This is not addressing the issue that your Teamster representative
I
is
know.
involved in.
I know.
The allegations here were read out loud by Councilor Fitton.
Right,
and,
and then you voted to look at hiring a mediator. And, you had asked me to research out a free option from the league, which I did, but they don't have that. And now we haven't been back to the table to discuss it further. But if you're gonna hire an outside party, then I would think that you would wait and speak directly to the outside party.
Okay, addressing the council, I see no reason whatsoever for this city with the financial position that we're in, to spend money on a investigator that, I feel I can clean up and clear up by simply replying to the allegations that were read in council meeting out loud by Councilor Fitton. And this is not the original, this is actually toned down quite a bit from what I originally wrote. However, I think that the information that I address here may well likely have stopped some of the other issues that we'll read about in the newspaper. And now I'm addressing the council here. We're tired of what I at one time called the media, sort of the media wars going back and forth about what goes on at the city council here. And I think that if we can clear these things up, we have so many issues that we have to address, socioeconomic, we have all of the social issues that we need to address. We have economic development issues. We have real estate taxes issue where we have people in this room who pay the highest taxes around that don't have city services, and those are things that we need to address. And we cannot continually be stopped up by these ridiculous, frivolous grievances that are being tossed around. So for that reason, and if the council wants to, if they want a motion and actually vote on whether or not I read this, we can do that. But
The one thing I would say is we haven't even gotten to accepting the agenda yet.
I know, and that's, if you recall, I said I'm taking a moment of personal privilege here, because I am going to recommend changes in the agenda. It's fine with me to go to the agenda now and then come back to this, but one way or the other, if the council agrees, I will read this. The reason it wasn't read last week is because the media had some fun with this, because my printer wasn't working, and the reason my printer wasn't working is because I was adding additional security to it so that I could capture IP addresses that that were attacking my computer, which I think the city is well aware of now. And so when I asked this to be printed by you last week, Linda, or 2 weeks ago, Linda, you refused to print it. So now it's printed and I have a copy for everybody, and I think it should be read.
Your proper response should go to the Employee Relations Committee, not to the council as a whole.
Then I think that the document that Councilor Fitton read should have gone to the Employee Relations Committee, and just a minute, Linda, and address there if you think that's the appropriate way. However, your mayor is not an employee of this city. I'm an elected official, elected by people that are in this audience and others in the city, and the Employee Relations Committee doesn't apply to me, nor does it apply to Mr. Fitton. If someone disagrees with that, I'd love to hear it, but that's.
It does apply to the employee that's involved though, and their process.
Then why was it read by a counselor in open meeting with allegations against me?
I think it was pretty much forced out. I don't know that it was wanted to be that way. It's up, hey,
Can I get an opinion from other counselors around the table?
All I can give you my opinion is
Of
that
course.
I spent the better part of a month trying to bring this to the closed meeting of council to discuss it just as a council without it being a much larger issue. And kept getting kicked down the road with it, and then the city attorney was here and basically said, well, then you need to just say it in open meeting. Didn't think it was the greatest idea, but, and the other part that this keeps getting mischaracterized as is the fact that this is not my sole opinions. These are the complaint that was brought to me for the official complaint from Steve Altenberg. And part of this is the things that I've heard from city staff, things I've observed myself. These are not solely my opinions.
Okay.
These were things that I brought to the council because the council wanted more reasons as to why there needed to be something looked into in the first place.
Okay, so we have a town here with citizens that are hearing innuendo and hearsay that you chose to take and read in open meeting here. I'm simply saying, let's get this out of the way, Kevin, and let me reply to you, and we'll drop it. It's done.
Again, you're mischaracterizing it. These are not my opinions. These are things that I passed on. And so these are things that the entire council should be concerned about.
The document that I would read has the precisely the wording that you were in the page and a half document that you read and then gave to me. Grammatical errors and all. It's verbatim what you wrote. And there are issues here where you are addressing these issues in the first person. So, I decline to agree with you.
I wrote them in first person because I was being expected to have some sort of response to the council that night. And so I wrote it down so that it was nice and concise, so that I didn't forget any parts of it. I'm just tired of going round and round with this, and
Join the club.
you are more than welcome to read whatever statement, whatever. It's gonna end up being one opinion versus another opinion, which is why I suggested somebody independent of this in the first place. And this
Could
is
turn out to be
exactly,
a lot of opinions against one.
and this is exactly the same kind of thing that the union rep was reporting to council about, is the fact that it's very easy for the council to get into trouble over this.
He did so himself. He blundered a number of times in blurting out private information from a closed meeting in a public forum. So, don't bring the union rep up to me. Just not gonna do that. So, if the council prefers, I can just hand these out. If you'd like to read, just so that you have the answers to the investigation that Fitton has done. And what's concerning here, and I think was concerning to people who were in the council chambers on the evening when you read this, is that there are things that are not formally documented. They're related issues. You called it related issues not formally documented yet. These were things that may come up sometime in the future and then will be investigated. And so this is innuendo and actually accusations of assumed future allegations against me. So the whole, your whole document, Kevin, was frivolous and absurd. And like I say, I can read this, but I won't do it without the council directing me to do so. And it's the council that will make that decision.
How
Now,
about the
I'm
citizens
fine.
wanting to hear it? I'm a 62-year citizen of this city. I'd like to hear it from you rather than reading it in the paper.
Thank you very much, Randy. everyone heard your opinion, but right now, we're not into public input yet. I really appreciate it, and, but you haven't been at one of these meetings before, and normally we talk about how public opinion is addressed in the meeting. So I appreciate your willingness to speak, but I think that this is an issue that this council needs to address. So would you like a copy of this and read it, and at a future meeting, we can decide whether we come back to it?
So if we walk it back, so when, these allegations were finally brought to light, and read aloud at the council meeting, we had voted to allow the opportunity, for you to respond to those, correct?
Mhm.
That's where we had gone
Yeah,
at that
that's right.
meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything said at that point as far as if the reading of your response needed to be in a closed meeting or open meeting or anything like that.
There wasn't. No.
Correct, okay. And my understanding was that if that did not suffice, then the plan was to go to mediation at that point. Or have you voted to go directly to mediation?
I think that's what I think it was, that
We were
you
getting the
going to get the opportunity to
Right.
speak and
To
address
rather
those
than do the
issues.
investigation,
Mhm.
hire an investigator, that I would
Give
create
him the
a written report.
opportunity to speak.
And I've
up
painstakingly gone through the original, report, the answer, that I gave, written March 3rd. I've gone through and made numerous edits on it to make sure that nothing, is in this report, that refers to any, private or, information that was, from closed meeting. Now, there is information that was in the closed meeting that is now public record because it's been spilled by other people, not me, but other people. So,
So with that being said, I have no, if you are comfortable with sharing this information and with the meeting tonight, then I see no reason to stop that.
okay, is that a resolution?
I
Is that a motion?
don't know if do we need a motion for something like that?
When you're taking action on an item you don't even have on your agenda yet, so that's kinda odd, but
Well, I suppose you could put that on put it on the agenda and then,
Add it to the agenda, that's fine with
and
me.
then let's do it that way.
Where are we adding these agenda items, are these under new business, or I suppose that would be under unfinished?
This really would be under unfinished business because there are things that have been addressed by the council in the past and are no longer new either to the general public or to this council. Okay. Okay, everything else that I had, that I was going to address, in my opening remarks, can be addressed during the meeting. And, so at this point, I will go to item number two, accept agenda.
Are you gonna add something to it, or yeah?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I want to add, the, response to, Mr. Fitton's remarks. It's, called Reasons for Outside Investigation. And, we can make that, 0.1 if you'd like, under unfinished business.
should be 5.3.
Probably 5.3 would be easier.
5.3 is fine. And then, the remarks, the remedy for grievance, is something that has, come out. It's been, it was created in a supposedly public meeting. And it has been passed on to the Teamsters who have already responded to it. I think that this needs to be read in its entirety at this council meeting. So I want to add remedy for grievance, and that is also an unfinished business, and we can make that 5.4. And I want to make a second comment there. Once the remedy for grievance is written, I'm going to read the letter that I wrote to Mr. Altenberg prior to that meeting. And it was in response to the specific grievance that was submitted by the Teamsters Union 320. And I think that that will put things into perspective. So there will be 2 readings in that agenda item. Secondly, I want to take several things that are under new business that are actually old business. 6.2 is actually, the Harbor Plat is actually old business. And I had made that actually 5.1 because we're going to bring Jeremy Schoenfelder in, and I'd like him to be at the beginning of the meeting. He is expecting a phone call. We'll be doing that here. So the number 6.2 will move up to unfinished business. And the ambulance delivery dates and payment schedule, number 6.7, that again is old business and should be moved up to.
That's a new request by you.
But it has to do with an existing
That was a
order of
brand
an
new
ambulance.
That was a brand new request by you.
That's fine, we'll leave it in new business. And the email security report was in new business last month, and therefore it should be moved up to unfinished business. Now, I have no problem leaving it in under new business if that's going to make it easier for you to follow along in the agenda. But that is not new business, that is old business.
I think it would be nicer to just leave it. I think it would be nicer to just leave it where it's at.
Okay, so number 6.8, the forensic report that's been created dealing with email security will be the last item on the agenda, second to the last. The last item is adjournment. You'll be ready to leave by then. Those are my changes to the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda? All in favor of accepting the agenda with the revisions as?
Do we need to move to accept first?
Pardon?
Do we need a motion?
I think we did that, didn't we?
No.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the agenda as revised? Okay, Steve made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm not. Okay. Our next item is number 3, public input. Is there any public input? And let me remind you, we want to keep public input to 3 minutes. It's not meant to bring debate. It's public information that you'd like to share with the public, or that you want to address to any previous issue that this council has dealt with. Any public input? Yes?
Oh, you're calling on me, I thought you were gonna see who all wanted to.
No, you were the
I'm-
first to raise
I'm
your hand,
first,
Mary, so
okay.
you're
Well
you're on.
then, I better get this thing back up. Sorry, I missed. Is there anybody else for public input? Let them go, let Richard go, please.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, as you saw, I put out a thing about broadband for each of you to see. There's a meeting on this Wednesday at 4:30. That's when the sandwiches and the lunch are gonna be, and at 5 o'clock the meeting starts. And we have the opportunity to work with 2 other areas and combine the $25,000 into a $75,000 deal where we can use all of us to to write the grants and all this stuff would be written as the three. So, the city of Tower, I would really encourage us to have a representative from the council at these meetings, just to show, the other communities are all, have already, you know, accepted it, and are going along with it, so. Tower, Greenwood, Brighting, let's see, Cougar area, they had, some had representatives at the meeting, some did, most of them did, Brighting and Greenwood. So anyway, I would like to encourage you to come to that meeting on Wednesday. It's gonna be at the Civic Center.
Okay, now, key to, there's two keys to this. One is that broadband is extremely important for both social issues and economic issues in this town. And we'd like to have as broad as support and participation as possible. And not to single anyone out, but to do so anyway. Richard, I want to thank you and Joan Broughton, and she isn't here, I don't believe, but Stephanie Ukla, who have really picked this thing up and worked with other townships and worked with Bill Coleman and Blandon on making these meetings happen. I appreciate all of the nudging that I'm getting from you as well to get my slides in on time and my presentations in on time. So it's been a busy time, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And for the public, this is a very important meeting. We want broadband here. And I'll extend that, I'll reiterate, I guess, that invitation from Richard to the council here as well. I hope that you can attend this Wednesday. Mary, are you ready?
Oh, sure, okay. My name's Mary Shedd, citizen of Tower. First, as always, I want to thank you for stepping up to serve Tower. A very tough job, and what, no secret, is an especially tough, divisive time right now for the council. But I do have faith that you'll eventually be able to all come together for the main purpose of making Tower the best it can be. And I like what you just said, we need to get to the business of Tower. There are very important issues to deal with. Tonight I have two items I want to comment on. Try to make that 3-minute rule. The first is a follow-up on my last public comment about videotaping, and the second is about the grievance. Videotaping. Back on the 25th of February, I provided comment on a previous comment about public comment about videotaping council meetings. I pointed out at that previous meeting that there had been a very specific request with what I believe is a very sound rationale to consider. The council meetings not being recorded due to risk of city participation in defamation, especially these early days of you guys working together. That's an aside. I said I don't know what the full pros and cons may be, because as requested, it's not been on the agenda. Now as then, I ask you again to please be responsive to public comments. It's an important issue that needs discussion and decision by the full council. It improves your accountability to those of us who elected you. If you won't be responsive to this, please at least tell me why you won't. For both the requests that came from two. The second is the grievance, and this was new information to me about whatever happened in the meantime between the last two meetings, and that's really got me pretty upset, but I wrote this before I heard any of that. My second comment is a respectful request that you please reject the finding of this grievance committee at this time. By any reasonable standard of government, business practice, or personal ethics, it is fatally flawed by the documented conflict of interest of Steve Altenberg. I don't have to go into the details other than to point out that the conflict is that Steve has an open grievance against the mayor. There's no scenario in which it is appropriate for such a person to sit in judgment and find negatively for a person he has filed a complaint against. We and so many of the citizens I bumped into the street know that it's absolutely clear that there's an animosity in this grievance, and it's necessary to revisit the complaint. If it is necessary, might be, then Altenberg must recuse himself before it can be revisited. This brings me to an obvious conclusion about Steve's appropriateness for this particular committee. He brings a ton of value to our community through his service on the fire department, and as well as interest in the other affairs of the city. But given that very few people can bring grievances against the city, it includes and the very few people that can include a group of people that he himself supervises. Anyone can see that this is inherently unfair in so many ways. I respectfully request that Steve be taken off the committee. There are many others he can serve on. The council should put out a call to solicit the service of another citizen who would have no conflicts of interest, inherent or perceived. It is the only way our grievance committee can be recognized as fair. Thank you again, respectfully submitted, Mary Shedd.
Thank you very much. We are going to be talking grievance policy tonight, so that may come up. Is there any other public input? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Spicer. My husband and I have been in town. It'll be a year in May. And a couple of issues I'd like to touch on is the allowance of chickens in town. It's my understanding chickens aren't allowed in town. I know there's chickens in Cook in town. My husband has talked to people in Sedan, they allow chickens. Duluth allows farm animals under 50 pounds. If you're concerned about noise or anything like that, I mean, you can put restrictions on it. You know, roosters are the ones that make noise. Guinea hens are the ones that make noise. You know, just a couple chickens, few eggs. And another issue I wanted to talk about is the speed limit sign on the east end of town. I live up by the Catholic church, and when I go home or leave town to go to work, I avoid that intersection because the people coming into town feel that they don't have to hit 30 until they hit that sign, which is 50 feet from that intersection. And I think it should be moved further out. The one on the west end of town is 0.4 miles out of town. Move that other one further out of town. Slow people down. Trucks come in, semi-trucks come in, they jake brake, noise travels right up the hill. People leave town and gun it, the noise travels right up the hill.
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you very much. I want to make just a quick comment on this. First of all, I love chickens, and but I need to ask our city clerk: is there an ordinance of any kind that specifically it requires that chickens not be kept within city limits?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a policy that I think we should address at a later time, and not very much later. You want eggs for Easter?
No, we lived on a farm for 10 years, and I haven't had to buy eggs for 10 years.
Okay.
Fresh eggs are better.
So it's an issue that we should bring up again. Just for your information, I have requested of the city clerk, and it's a big job, so I'm sure she's working on it, and it's gonna take a while. But I would like to see that the city council gets a full stack, whether it's electronic or printed, of all policies. The fact that anytime we're wondering if there's a policy for something, that we have to call and ask and wait several days before it can be found. And that's not a criticism, Linda, it's you have to put it into your work schedule. I think that it would be good for us to have a policy book that we can refer to. If we need to change a policy, then we have the policy to make revisions to. So we will look at that policy.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
that would be an issue that would go to the planning and zoning. And because it is an ordinance, if there was a change in the ordinance, there would also have to be a public hearing regarding that.
Okay.
So, you can't just change it without that, so.
Do we know when, planning and zoning meets again?
They were supposed to meet tomorrow, but, one of the members had a death in their family, and it's kind of taken out a couple of the other members as well, so we'll have to find time to move it on a date.
Okay.
So I
Is
don't
That's good,
know.
because they have some other things we should probably.
Is that something that could be added to their agenda to review that policy?
Yeah,
and-
yeah, we could.
Okay.
So, an issue of the speed limit, I share that concern also. We've often talked about, we do have a place of business, second to last, building on Main Street, toward going east, well, actually on the east side of town. And the, many cars are not slowing down until they're well past us. We actually need a crosswalk there, to slow people down. So, that's another issue that, we should look at, but, I think not only think, but that does, include the Department of Transportation, it's Highway 169.
It would, yeah.
So, Linda, if you would, look at the appropriate procedure for reviewing speed limits and where the speed limit signs should be coming into town, we will address that issue, take it seriously. Steve? would you-
I just know, cause been involved in some of those, that MinDOT would be involved in that, and
Yeah.
would probably do a study.
Mhm.
It's typically what they do, because they don't like moving signs without doing
Mhm.
studies, so. But that, obviously, that can be looked into, that maybe they put another sign there that, you know, that yellow 30s or something, but they will address it, and then, so.
Okay, thank you very much, we take it seriously. Is there any other public input? Steve?
I'd like to read my comments,
Okay.
and my name is Steve Wilson. Some of you know I'm married to Mary Shedd, and, it's gonna look like there was some collusion between us, but I can tell you that Mary was typing her comments as we were walking to the meeting, so I have not read them. Sadly, and I emphasize this sadly, incompetence, dishonesty, the criminal, and other unfortunate behaviors have, more often than not, become the hallmarks of Tower's governance, putting us on the way to becoming a laughingstock of Minnesota governments. Examples are too numerous to mention here and are already well documented in the local media, but two recent examples include an apparent attempt to sabotage a major economic development initiative, the Harbor Project, and recent meetings of the aforementioned grievance committee. The committee has 3 members, one of which could be filled by a citizen of Tower. Rather than appoint one of the hundreds of Tower residents with no apparent conflict of interest, the past council installed a city employee who I agree brings a ton of value to the city in his positions that he's held. Appointed that employee in a position where he would pass judgment on cases involving his coworkers, an obviously inappropriate situation. In the most recent case considered by the committee, this person sat in judgment of a fellow city employee's grievance, but took the opportunity to turn the hearing into part of a crusade against the city mayor, even though he is pursuing a frivolous complaint against the mayor. This despite the advice from a respected and knowledgeable past mayor who serves on the grievance committee that his rationale was illogical and inconsistent with past practice, policy, and guidance from the League of Minnesota Cities. That the city employee serving on the committee didn't do the glaringly obvious ethical course of action and recuse himself from voting on the complaint before the grievance committee is evidence of his obsession with bringing down the mayor, as he stated in the past. In the committee's meeting last Friday, the former mayor failed to receive notification of the meeting, clearing the way for the 2 remaining members to continue their crusade unencumbered by any voice of reason. If this keeps up, Wikipedia's entries on Kangaroo Court will soon feature Tower as case study number 1. You can't make this stuff up. In fairness to the existing council, it needs to be pointed out that what ails Tower stems from the actions of past city council and 1 or 2 city employees and members of council appointed commissions. It's not too late to salvage Tower's reputation, but it will require that the 2 holdovers from the last council join the rest of the council in trying to build up Tower instead of tear it down. If not, Tower risks becoming the municipal equivalent of notoriously dysfunctional governments like Venezuela, Haiti, and Honduras, the original banana republic. Actually, I may be maligning Honduras by lumping them with Tower. My wife and I visited there in December, and you have to give the current government their credit for at least trying to head in the right direction, which means the banana republic title is up for grabs. If we don't turn things around, we could rightfully assume the title. Most towns like to promote themselves for what they're best known for. If we don't turn this around, it will no longer be Lake Vermilion, and we may have to change the entrance sign to town to read Tower, Banana Republic of Minnesota Municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I believe there was one more, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Dave Rose. I'm here to request that the city council get involved and work with the planning and zoning board on their current procedure the planning and zoning board is using. I think, you know, you guys can talk over amongst yourself. I am also requesting that the city gets help and advice from their own city attorney and the St. Louis County Planning and Zoning Board, which has been around for years, on the current procedure that planning and zoning board is using. I just think I'd like everybody, you know, to work together and get some outside advice on the current procedure. That's it, thank
Do
you.
you have do you have a concise, specific issue that you would like this council to work together with the planning and zoning?
Yes, on my RV park.
Okay.
That,
And the issue specifically that you'd like us to address?
the procedure and what we have to do now to apply for conditional use after 3 years and how many thousands and thousands of dollars of work, I have yet to be able to apply for a conditional use. And I have EAW, wetland delineation, government agencies, 7 different government agencies. We even handled that we were affecting the bats and the Sudan mine. It's all been done, all been complete now. And I'm still it's over 3 years now at a total standstill.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a better idea, exactly what you're getting at now. Linda, I think that, if you make a note that we, have an agenda item that we address seriously, I think, it should be at a first meeting of one of the upcoming, months, where we address the issues, at a council level that have been at issue with the, planning and zoning.
Say that again?
I don't think I can.
What are you wanting to do?
I would like to follow Mr. Rose's, suggestion that, and I'm doing this because I know that this has been going on for years. If there are, call it roadblocks or issues that.
Wait a minute, can I make a comment
Yeah.
on this? Mr. Rose, with his RV park, I live in that neighborhood, and we've been very much against his RV plan. And he has yet to come forward with all the information that the city has requested from him. So it is not the city or the planning and zoning's fault for any of his problems. It is his own planning that has not been developed totally. And the city better realize that those residents on that point are very adamant that their voices better be heard too.
I'm aware of that.
She's right, the ordinance clearly states what is required, and a site plan, a plot for the project showing locations of property boundaries, surface water features, existing and proposed structures, other facilities, land alterations, sewage treatment, water supply systems, and topographical contours at 10 feet intervals or less. And then also the property needs to be staked, and then there also needs to be an archaeological study, not requested by the city, this was requested by the state historical. So I guess before we do what you were thinking, maybe those of you who are not familiar with this project, get familiar first, and then if you still have those same questions, maybe then go to changing something, but right now we are following the ordinance. We have called our city attorney already. I don't know what more you wanna do, because I don't have topographical contours at 10 feet or less. I do not have a location of the water supply system, the sewage treatments, I don't have any of this. And I just read right out of the ordinance, it tells you, in pretty
And also-
plain English.
And also, he's changed his plan, he approached the citizens on no claim plan and said he wanted to do a townhome, 2 townhomes now. you know, and asked how we felt about that. And we said, well, we'll take a look at it if you come up with a plan, but he never got back to us. So things keep changing on his end. It's not been the ordinance, it's not been planning and zoning, it hasn't been any of the ordinances. You know, so people like to, you know, just pointing fingers at the government, but it isn't the government's fault.
Speaking for planning and zoning, there is a combination of complications. It is, because it is next to the river, there's a lot of state agencies, and not all of them have signed off. And then there's the city's ordinance itself, and it's a conditional use permit. So there is a lot of complicated requirements to do that. So you cannot just decide for one person that you're going to change that ordinance all of a sudden. It wouldn't be fair. He is being asked nothing that anybody else wouldn't be asked for under the same conditions.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay. Where to go with that one? I think, as I understand it, and I understand the opposition, I understand the position of the two sides, and I wanna do the right thing here and the right thing for Tower. But I wanna make sure that, the process for getting conditional use and then following up on all of the issues that one has to follow up on once they have the conditional